Hello BookTube, Books with Banks back again today, and today I'm going to do a specific or kind of a newer type of video that I'm toying around with. Today I want to talk about one of my specific bookshelves, being my Star Wars expanded media bookshelf. So I have a few different types of things here. I have some homemade things, I have some Legos, and of course I have some books to kind of go through and explain. And if at the end of the video, if I haven't talked about a book or haven't mentioned something that you think I would really enjoy, or based on the books I have read, if you think there's a real gap in certain characters or certain kind of timelines, time periods, different series, different recommendations you might have. I would love it if you could comment down below. Also, if I have read something and I didn't like it so much, but you really did love it, please let me know why. Maybe I'll go back, give it a bit of a reread, and see if I can amend or change my opinion on any particular stories I'm about to talk about here. But yeah, so just first, real quick, the first thing I'll talk about are these two crocheted baby Yodas or Grogu dolls that my mom made for me. My mom loves crocheting cute little stuff like this, and it was a couple birthdays ago. She got me this one, and then last year she got me this one. And I think as adorable as the character is, these are of course just as adorable. So there's those two. I love them. Then I forget what Lego set it was, and I have other Star Wars Lego sets that are kind of tucked away right now in bags, just because there's not enough space to display a ton of Legos all around my room. But with one of those, it came with this kind of classic 20 years anniversary kind of Lego figurine of Leia, and I thought that was really, really cool. I don't think I've ever had the Leia character or Lego character, so I like to display her on the shelf. I think she's a great character in that original trilogy. Yeah, I really, really love this piece here. Then I also, kind of going back to Mandalorian stuff a little bit, that came out with this AT-ST Walker specialized version from, it's like episode 4 or 5 of the first season of Mandalorian. And I got this a couple years ago, and I think it's really cool how they kind of updated it and made it a little bit more special, made it look beat up like it does in the show. So I've got that displayed on the shelf. It's also, it's a nice vertical piece, so it can take up a decent amount of space on the shelf. It's a little bit of like a bookend if I need something like that. And then last but definitely not least is my Slave One Lego set, and you can see Boba Fett in there. I love this. This was so much fun to put together. I just love the structure of this, the structure and the design of this. Not only the actual ship from the movies, but just how they designed the Legos and like how they made it all work together and made it so the wings kind of can, well, this one's not going down, but yeah, how they can like bend back and forth, and how he sits in there and his seat tilts. Really, really cool set. Yeah, the Slave One. So that was all the stuff that's not book related. Now we're gonna get into the books on my Star Wars bookshelf. First, I'll talk about the one that I haven't read. It's this nice hardback edition of Star Wars Catalyst. From what I understand, it's the prequel to Rogue One. Have not read this yet, and everything everyone's told me is that I would love it. That's why it's on my shelf, but again, I haven't got around to it. So if you have any particular feelings about this book, please let me know down below. I'd love to know if I should, really move it up on my TBR. Alright, so there's that. Then I should say, before I get into anything else, I am going through just first what is considered canon in the new canon, since Disney took over. So that's most of these books I'm going to be talking about. So then I've got this really nice collection. I always love when I can get a collection of, some smaller novels and short stories. This has New Dawn, Tarkin, and 3 short stories. Tarkin, I guess, represented down there. New Dawn represented up there. Tarkin, I wasn't the biggest fan of. I thought it was a little slow, and it's definitely not my favorite thing or my favorite time I've spent in any Star Wars story. But I actually really, really loved New Dawn a lot more than I expected. I think they playing around with some of the characters from Rebels, who you can see pictured there. They got to introduce me to them, or show me where they met, how they started out. But more than that, it's just a really cool idea for a sci-fi story. Everything that's going on with mining operations on a moon versus what's going on the planet. Really, really cool science fiction stuff in New Dawn. So that's that book. That collection of books, I guess. Then talk about this one, Claudia Gray. It's one of a few that I read of hers. I really enjoy Claudia Gray's contributions to Star Wars. Master and Apprentices actually might be my least favorite of the 3 I've read of hers. It's just kind of strange to me that they don't really use their lightsabers that much, and it introduces interesting, like, weird things, like how Obi-Wan Kenobi knows how to communicate and interact with the weird lizard thing he's riding on in Revenge of the Sith. I mean, it's fine that we get that, but I really didn't need that backstory. But it is cool seeing 2 Jedi basically being officers of the government, of the Republic, just doing their diplomacy jobs, like just going to this planet and working through a diplomatic sort of crisis. Really, really interesting stuff. Great book. Again, maybe not my favorite Claudia Gray that I've read, but that's no real knock against it because everything I've read by her so far I have loved. So that's Master and Apprentice. Then I guess we'll keep that Claudia Gray train going a little bit. Bloodlines. This was one of, like, I think the second thing I read in the new canon, and I really loved this. I didn't know I loved the Leia character as much as now I do, until I read this, and I really like the direction that she, I guess the angle that she showed us about politics and what the Senate looks like after Return of the Jedi, and how tricky that whole political situation is. And I think this is a really nice prologue, I guess, to some of our legacy characters for where we find them in Force Awakens. But I think this story is much better than anything we get in Force Awakens or any of the newer trilogy, the most recent trilogy. Really great book here, Bloodlines. Love it. Really, really good intrigue. Then this might be a little sacrilegious to some of the real Star Wars fans out there. But this is the only Timothy Zahn book I've read so far. This is Thrawn, the first book in his first trilogy under the new kind of canon series. I haven't read the Heir to the Empire or that whole trilogy that was really big in the extended universe before Disney bought everything up. And apparently I would love those books. I know I eventually need to get around to reading those. As for this one, I thought it was good. My only problem with it, I thought the characters were very believable. However, so much of it are these little mysteries that Thrawn would solve the mysteries by pulling out some kind of arcane bit of wisdom or like trivia knowledge about the way certain species or droids or things work, that we, the readers, we can't really play along because we don't know all of the information. We don't have all of the information to put these pieces together. So there's a bit of that in this, and that's not my favorite way that mysteries are done. But as far as the Star Wars book goes, I think this was really, really gripping stuff, throwing us into the time period after or between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. Really good book. Definitely not my favorite, though, of what I've read. And again, I might love other Thrawn stuff more, especially from what I've heard, I might really love the stuff that isn't canon anymore. So I know I should give that a try sometime. Maybe I should continue on with this trilogy. I don't know any big Thrawn fans out there. Would you recommend I read his original trilogy first, or continue on with the canon trilogies? That would kind of be that would be good to know as far as moving forward with my Star Wars reading. Right. Then we've got the short book, Dark Disciple. Deals with two of my favorite characters during the Clone Wars, Quinlan Vos and Asajj Ventress. Interesting, fine book. Read and apparently it's based on kind of scrapped scripts of some episodes for the Clone Wars series, but that's really what it feels like. It feels like a run of Clone Wars episodes, and it's good stuff. However, I really love the Quinlan Vos character in other Star Wars content, and I'll get to that in just a little bit. So, a nice adventure. If you want a little more Clone Wars stuff, the flavor of the show, think more the serious stuff like with Savage and Darth Maul than the goofier droid stuff. It's definitely on the more serious side of the Clone Wars kind of drastic tonal differences, like spectrum that series covers. Dark Disciple, good book. Then I've got Queen's Shadow, a nice adventure with Padme, and we get also some Sabe and her other handmaidens. We get to know a little more about what that life was like growing up as royalty, becoming a senator, and also what the different types of political intrigue that her allies have to kind of get into on her behalf, and things that they're investigating on their own. Really good book, really, really short, but a really, really solid book. Queen's Shadow. I haven't read Queen's Peril, which I think is the sequel to this. So if anyone thinks I'd like that, please let me know. Then we have Ahsoka. I thought this was nice because I like the Ahsoka character. However, in all of her storylines we get across, now Clone Wars and Mandalorian and everything she's appeared, and Rebels, everything she shows up in, this kind of read like a bit of a slower series of episodes, or kind of series of plot beats and kind of life events in her life. There is action in here, but none of it really got me too excited or too invested in this particular story. The character herself, however, she's what kept me reading, and I think that the author, E.K. Johnston, who also wrote Queen's Shadow here. I think the author does a good job at capturing what the Ahsoka character is all about. So yeah, from a character standpoint, great book. Actual, plot beat by plot beat, it's kind of take it or leave it. And then one final canon book to talk about. This was the first new canon work that I read, and it's the only Claudia Gray I haven't mentioned. And that's Lost Stars. I think this is really, really smart, and I think it really plays on nostalgia, because whenever these two characters on different sides of the Galactic Civil War, the main setting of the original trilogy, whenever they're seeing these different things happen for the first time to them, Claudia Gray is so good at capturing that feeling that we all had, at least me and some of my friends in my generation I know had when our parents showed us these movies for the first time. And I can imagine that people, an older generation, had when they went to see these movies in theaters for the first time. She does such a good job at bringing us back into kind of witnessing the destruction of Alderaan for the first time, or what it's like, what the trench run is like, again for the first time. And I think there's a love story here, but it never gets too sappy. It never steals the spotlight away from the larger picture of the conflict that's going on. And again, there's never an effort to, I think, make us sympathize with the Empire, but there is an effort, as successful effort, I think, to make us kind of empathize with some of the individuals who are sucked into fighting for the Empire and kind of, just wrapped up in all of the dogma and all of the stuff, about how they're the only way that the galaxy or that planets can survive and people can be healthy, and everyone else trying to bring them down like the rebels are just terrorists. You can kind of see where a lot of people's thinking gets warped. And I think Claudia Gray does a really good job at that, while never making us, want to root for the Empire. Really, really great book. Probably my favorite one, this or Bloodline, of what I've talked about so far. So that does it for the canon books I have, what I've read. And again, of those I just went through, I haven't read Catalyst. I have read the others. But now I'm going to get into the books that probably some of my favorite Star Wars content I've ever consumed. And this was before I knew much about expanded universe stuff or anything like that. I didn't even know where this stuff would fit. I just found a few issues of the Republic comic series at the library, and I read some of those out of order. Then I found out that there were these collections, these graphic novel collections that came out, and this is the Dark Horse published Clone Wars volumes, comic volumes, and I absolutely love all of these. I just put volume 5 up front because it's one of my favorite covers. It's actually probably one of the slower volumes here, but one of my favorite covers for sure, with Yoda and the clone trooper right there. But basically, if you haven't read any of these, let me find volume 1. So this is just the first volume. They go through kind of these typical or these classic Clone Wars storylines that have become canonized eventually now. So like in this one, you have like the character of Quinlan Vos being introduced as a bit of a rebel, not really us the readers not knowing, does he stand with the good guys or with the bad guys? Is he on the dark side? What's going on with him? What's his deal? There's a lot more in this whole series of 9 volumes about him. That's some of my favorite stuff in the series. But here, the first volume just kind of introduces that. Then like the whole middle chunk of this is all about Kamino and the battle for Kamino. There's some artwork there inside. And so yeah, and that battle for Kamino, that's been depicted in different series as well. Let me see some other stuff. Again, Volume 8, Quinlan Vos gets the cover because he really does, eventually by the end of the series, become one of its main stars, one of its main characters. And I think he encapsulates a lot of that conflict between light and dark, Jedi and Sith, that the prequel trilogy is sort of trying to be about, but I think doesn't do great as far as subtly conveying its themes. I think this graphic novel series does an amazing job. Let me see some other stuff I really like in here. Oh yeah, Volume 3 is this whole great kind of Anakin, Obi-Wan centric battle for Jabim, I think is the name of the planet. And this whole, like all of the issues in here all have to do with just how kind of devastating it is to be one of these Jedi Knight generals leading soldiers to their deaths, and watching other Jedi in training, Padawans and stuff, dying, and just this is like a brutality of war kind of volume, is what Volume 3 is all about. Again, I can't talk enough about Quinlan Vos and how important he is and how this series made him one of my favorite characters. But Volume 4, this is Count Dooku, obviously on the cover, but this is the volume where we really see Quinlan Vos sort of go undercover, pretend to be a Jedi that's turned to the dark side. But then I think the artists and the writers of these did a really, really good job conveying the conflict in Quinlan Vos's own mind of he's pretending, but not only but he's not only lying to Dooku about being a Sith, he might be lying to himself about being a Jedi. A lot of that starts here, and we get the conclusion to some of that in Volume 8. It's really 9 volumes that go from just after Attack of the Clones. They covered the whole 3-year time period all the way through. This is the cover of Volume 9, so obviously all the way through after the end of Revenge of the Sith. Really, really great stuff. When I think about that prequel era, a lot of the stories and characters and the storylines, what they've gone through here, this is what comes to mind. When in the prequels, people reference like vague missions they've gone on together, or when I see like Aayla Secura, I'm not even sure if that's how you say her name, but this Twi'lek Jedi. When I see her pop up in a few things, I think especially about the stories in this comic series, and that's what makes a lot of the deaths in Revenge of the Sith a lot more heartbreaking for me. So yeah, if you haven't checked out this Clone Wars series, again, it's published by Dark Horse Comics. The first one is called The Defense of Kamino and Other Tales. The last one's called Endgame. These are the cover styles. And most of the issues, most of the comic run that is used in these is, I think it was called the Republic, but then there's a few kind of longer, like special issue things that are incorporated in here. Things that Dark Horse, Star Wars Stories, Dark Horse published around the same time as their Republic run of comics was going on. Really, really great stuff. Let me know if you've read these, if my love of these would mean I would love certain other stories that I haven't checked out yet. Please let me know any of that down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. Have a good one.